We want to thank everyone who's joining us right now for this rapid webinar. We really appreciate you being here today and spending your lunch with us.
Thank you. Hello, and welcome to our first webinar in our capacity building series entitled Building Momentums in Times of Change. We are so pleased that you could be with us here today. I'm Dr. Natalie Natal, and I'm one of 3 regional coordinators serving the Los Angeles and Orange County region. And I will turn it over to my partner, Libby, so she can introduce herself.
And hello, everyone. My name is Libby Lee Curiel, and colleague to Natalie here, Dr. Natal in this region. And we want to introduce our panelists really quickly. So we have with us El Camino College's team, Janice Panashikawa, Taryn Bailey, Jason Suarez, Joshua Rosales, and Jenny Simon, all part of the core Guided Pathways team at El Camino College, as well as
we also have Dr. Jessica St. Paul and Ria Petrie, who are here as co-guided pathways facilitators.
Wonderful.
And so why are we doing this? So as you know, everything shifted for us in so many ways due to the pandemic. With the shift to online learning, we know that some colleges have been struggling to maintain momentum on guided pathways, which is totally understandable. We've also noticed that some colleges have been able to continue this work with minimal disruption. So we want to use this opportunity to provide colleges with strategies for building momentum in times of change. As such, we are featuring 2 colleges from our Los Angeles and Orange County region that have been doing very well in terms of increasing engagement and broadening their base to continue guided pathways work while centering equity.
Awesome. And before we get to the colleges, we want to just be able to share a few tips and strategies that Dr. Natal and I have noticed in the region when we are seeing colleges being able to build momentum or work on continuing momentum. So the first tip is refocusing on your why. So it's really important. We're here for students. So centering them and their experience in our work is paramount. So why do they need guided pathways, right? Being able to come back to that. What are the outcomes that we're looking at? Some of the leading indicators, what are they telling us? And what does guided pathways have to offer to change their experience? So it offers the fact that we're working across and hopefully being able to diminish or eliminate silos to work collaboratively with one another. We are hopefully elevating the student voice in this work and being able to let them guide how we move forward, and then being able to really think about what our North Stars are. If you don't have them as a team, it's really important. North Stars are really just about they come from the problems your team is trying to solve, and they should be aligned with the institution's goals. For example, if the institution is struggling with retention from fall to fall, then maybe one of your guided pathways North Stars is to work on things that are going to increase that retention rate from fall to fall. So you'll want to revisit and align them with your team's actions and be able to evaluate and measure how you're doing as you go along. But don't forget to take time to reflect and celebrate. This work is hard and it takes time. So being able to look back and acknowledge that, build on what's good, and learn from the past to improve and pivot when needed is so important. But also don't forget to celebrate the journey. You're building something that will positively impact your communities for generations. So when you might feel like you're losing momentum, best thing is go back to the North Stars for direction, and that'll help you establish why you're doing this. Next is to look at the SOAA as a planning tool, and probably most of you are already doing that. Being able to start with the end in mind. What do you want the students' experience to be like by, let's say, fall 2021, or fill in the blank for your end line that you're looking at, and work backwards from there. And being able to respond by revisiting and updating the SOAA tool as needed is important, remembering that it's due on an annual basis. So this upcoming one is due March 2021, but you'll want it to go through governance approvals possibly, and that for your college might be November and December, or December, February. And then using the equity considerations to really help, especially now during changing times, using a COVID-19 and a racial justice lens to make sure that you're achieving the goals that you want as an institution to help increase equity on your campus. And then using the SOAA to help with integration efforts. How can you utilize the different elements on that document, such as AB 705, and advancing equity in that way, or through career and exploration, and using that as a method to help collaborate across the silos that might be in existence. And then thinking about how you pull in leadership to help support your efforts. So I would love to highlight El Camino College's example. They were in a space where they were feeling a little bit stuck maybe. So they did the following things, which helped propel them forward. So one, they gauged their culture, right? Who do we, what is our culture on campus? How do we normally operate? What are things, how do we move things forward in other ways? They used that to help establish where they were having lag points in their guided pathways movement. And then they asked for what they needed. They realized they needed college leadership to really help propel them forward and get the message that this was a college-wide effort. So they requested a college-wide forum, and they took a cross-collaborative approach, really pulling in, rather than having a core guided pathways team plan this, they pulled in folks from all over campus, professional development, instruction, student services. Everyone was a part of creating this forum. And they used it as an opportunity to both inform what was happening with guided pathways, but also engage folks into the work. And then they used this event to follow up with folks to help expand their base. So that's an example of how you can use leadership to help support and propel forward.
Thank you. So when evaluating your engagement, it is helpful to look at your existing GP team structure. Is it still working? Are there any gaps? Who is moving the work forward? In evaluating your structures, colleges may want to limit the number of people on the design teams to focus attention and resources and energy on select areas. And before releasing recommendations to the full campus and/or departments, design teams should consider bringing in a few critical constituents whom the group trusts and can help critique and clarify the content and messaging. Also, engage in equity checks at each decision point that will close equity gaps, mitigate creating new equity issues, thereby increasing outcomes for all students. And I'm going to be including a link once I'm finished talking to a one sheet that our region created on cross-functional teams for your reference. It's also important that your team has a communication plan, which acts as a roadmap for getting your message delivered to your audience. Your communication plan should be clear and cohesive with goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It also should include your key stakeholders. Who needs to be engaged? What levels need to be engaged and when? And when they are engaged, will it just be for FYI, solicitation of input or feedback, or full engagement? Also, you want to consider your methods of engagement. Is it emails, newsletters, roadshows, forums? And lastly, continuously evaluate your plan and adjust when necessary. I'll also be including a link to a fabulous presentation that our colleague in the Bay Area region, Catherine Bergman, did on communication and engagement, which also includes links to sample communication plans from colleges if you would like to research further. Now, we know that colleges are struggling with budget cuts, especially due to low enrollment. That poses a challenge when you're working to institutionalize some of your efforts beyond your allocated GP funding. So one thing you might want to consider is securing philanthropic funding through your college's foundation or other outside resources. Also, at the Equity Conference last week, for those who were in attendance, Chabot College mentioned that for a program they launched, they have used funding sources such as rollover C funding, categorical, and general funds. They're also using salary savings from vacant positions that they have. So these are some creative ways that you can find funding on your campus. And lastly, focus on retention efforts. Our partner, Sean, in our region gave a fabulous 7-minute presentation on this last year, and I'll also be including that as well in the chat. And finally, another limiter to lack of engagement is that folks are stressed. and worn out. We know that a lot of our faculty, staff, and administration have not had a break since the pandemic began. And of course, we know of all the various issues that 2020 has brought us this year. So it is important that while we are doing this work, we also need to prioritize sustaining our campus community, which means that we need to care for ourselves in the process so we can continue to do this work. So first, acknowledge your feelings and know that what you are feeling is real, and set clear boundaries for your work and try to adhere to them. Plan time in your day to decompress and practice self-care routines throughout the day, and stay connected with others. Sometimes I reach out to my colleagues, just to Zoom and just hang out, other than, just for work, because I just want to see and stay connected, with some of my colleagues. And most importantly, celebrate your successes along the way. Take time as a team to recognize each other for your hard work, because we know that this is not an easy time. So now I would like to turn it over to Libby to begin our panel discussion and hear from our colleagues in the region.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natal. And we're so excited to hear from our colleges here. So the first question we have, and this is to both colleges, is how are you centering students' needs, voices, and equity in framing your team's North Stars, so the problems your team is trying to solve?
Okay, I'll start. Jessica from Southwest College. So one thing that we've done is we've had our guided pathway student ambassadors as part of our process. We realized that there was great work already happening on our campus, and so we realized that one of our tri-chairs actually worked really hard to break down our SOAA, as we all know, our document that we use for our goals, and they put them within our standing committees, which included equity considerations. This shared governance process has also given our Guided Pathway Steering Committee an opportunity to be part of the process. We have really enjoyed that opportunity for our students to be part of that process. And also, while our committees are developing their committee operating agreements in a student-centered equity lens, they also receive the goals that we have in our SOAA. So that's just one of our examples that we've used.
Thank you so much. El Camino, do you want to share how you're doing this work?
I guess from the beginning, we've been really intentional about including students in the guided pathways work. In order to come up with our meta majors, we actually did card sorts, and then we intentionally went to club meetings, student club meetings, classrooms, and we had students participate in the card sorts. Actually, 75% of the participants that participated in the card sorts were students. And then we've also, really worked on including them in our committee meetings and our work groups. It started really with that United for Student Success and having one of the presenters be a student and then going from there, and really looking for a diverse student body too. So not just the students that are already participating in governance at our school, but like other students too. So really reaching out to students within the classroom. And our success teams on the campus have really helped recruit students from their classes to participate in not only our committees and work groups, but our meta major success teams as well. And using centering with equity, really trying to say that guided pathways and equity are kind of the same thing. We're looking to help our students, and they're not separate things that are going on campus. And so really making sure to emphasize that with everybody, and then looking at data to make sure that we're focusing on that. And I guess it's back to basics, really, making sure that our institutional research has the basic data real time on our campus. And so for us, that's really making us look at our technology and going back to see, does everybody have access to the proper things on our campus to be able to make these informed decisions based on data. Sorry.
No, that was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Wonderful. So I will direct this to Southwest first. What are some great tips and tricks to build guided pathways momentum in the online environment, or any other unique tools that you have used to increase collaboration?
I can address that. Good afternoon, everyone. So I think collectively between our Guided Pathways Steering Committee and our awesome and amazing student ambassadors, we've employed several. As an example, we've established a student support hub, which we made sure to, within 1 or 2 clicks from our website, students are able to easily access all of the online platforms. Our students also created several things, a virtual lounge over the summer to engage students and to continually, keep the Guided Pathways work moving forward and hear the student voice. Therefore, as we plan and we have weekly meetings with our students, we were always, receiving feedback and trying to assuage any types of concerns that students had. In terms of technology, Google Forms, Kahoot, Prezi, Canva, the Wheel of Names. The students have been amazing at, opportunity drawings, which, no one turns away a good gift card. But it really has been helpful just from, to keep the momentum up and to get everyone excited about the work. In addition to that, our students collaborated with ASO over the summertime. And, lastly, I think up until recently, we've been really working hard to engage, kind of to El Camino's point as well, with dispersing our students across the committees to ensure that they have a seat at the table, with all aspects of Guided Pathways transformation. So I think those collectively has helped. We also have had weekly town halls with our president facilitating most times, but I know there's one exclusively for students, which our ambassadors have had a regular part in, and then we have one for faculty and staff held on another day of the week. So I think all of those collectively have helped to keep momentum going.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And what about El Camino? Would you have anything to add? Oh, Taryn,
about that, yes.
Oh, okay.
So I would just like to do the counter to that. I think we've found the same thing, that students are hungry for engagement. They're ready to connect. The technology for some, is overwhelming, but for the most part, they're ready to jump in. And so on our side, to keep that momentum going, in terms of the staffing, faculty members and the classified professionals, we needed to really just have a positive attitude as much as possible and be flexible. Like, the best tip that we started sharing to everybody is we just need to embrace it. We can't wait for things to go back to normal. So let's embrace it. Let's be flexible, try things out. And we've really utilized Microsoft Teams to connect with our colleagues, to keep the chats going. And we're actually finding that we're meeting up more often than we were prior to the pandemic. And so that's really helped to, keep the momentum going. And as Libby had mentioned before, we had a campus-wide forum. And then once that took off, it's kind of just been going full steam ahead since then.
I would say that also, in addition to that, sometimes there's others that are at different points, like Taryn was saying, in terms of technology and getting on Microsoft Teams and things like that. We've been also, Taryn's really good at this too, reaching out to individuals like one-on-one. So if that's via text or via email, figuring out how they communicate best, and then bring them on slowly onto Microsoft Teams to really get them on board. So making that connection one-on-one with people that are not necessarily participating but probably want to, we're just trying to get them, at the same level with everybody else.
I would also add that people are really looking to connect right now. So keep reaching out. Individual emails and texts really help bring people in.
That is so good, because my next question was actually going to be like, how do you, back in the day, if you had a sticking point or some kind of conflict, you might see each other in the hallway or by the cooler or, on your way to the, duplication office or something. And these days that just looks very different. So also wondering, how do you assess and manage just conflicts that might arise in the online environment to keep moving forward? And that question's to either team.
I would know, like, for us, the good thing is that we've, because Zoom, I think, is probably everyone's best friend, either Zoom or Microsoft Teams, but what has helped us is we've actually able to use Zoom to like say checking on our meetings. We actually have we have weekly meetings with our students and also with our actual team. So if our team, like our executive team or the steering committee, they can always assist and like work with us. We also have liaisons. So like Rhea and I, since I'm in the academic affairs side, she's on student service side, but we actually have within our work groups, we are actually their liaisons. So they don't feel like when they're working with their teams and we're online, they know they can always reach to us. So like we're one click away, they can always contact us during that time. And our Guided Pathway student ambassadors have Rhea and myself to always call on during that time. So I think having your facilitators as liaisons within your work groups and the campus, they know they have two faces that they can always count on and can always reach out to them throughout the time that they're working with each other.
Another thing is, I think on the videos, now that we're more, you know, over the internet, over Zoom, over Teams, it is very enticing or tempting to multitask and to do other things, you know, at the same time, where, you know, if you were in person and you were talking with an individual, that student or you know, a colleague, that you would be focused and intent on the conversation. I think that over technology, that's something to be mindful of, is to stay present, because a conflict can arise just because we're multitasking.
I would also add that to keep students at the center, I mean, we're all on the same team here. We're all here to serve our students and to ultimately increase student success. So keeping that in mind is key for managing conflicts.
I think I'd go back to, you know, what I said before. It's sometimes in a big meeting, if there is a conflict or a misunderstanding, reaching out to that person individually, or also, you know, we found that some of, I think going back to those tips and tricks from earlier, we found that our Guided Pathways committee, our big campus committee, was a little bit too large. And that was kind of what we needed at the very beginning, but really looking at like making it a little smaller and more intentional. And so I think that, you know, sometimes like we have to just realign what our committees look like so that we get a little bit more done. I think that being more intentional about who's on those committees doesn't just helps a little bit with less conflict. And people that are, you know, a smaller group is more engaged regularly. We found that sometimes those big committees, like, people aren't coming on a regular basis. And so that caused some confusion because a certain person hadn't been there on a regular basis. They weren't necessarily up to date with what was going on.
Such great feedback. Well, our next question is, what have been your biggest lessons learned in terms of moving forward and building and maintaining momentum? And what advice would you have for other college teams that might be feeling stuck right now?
The biggest thing for me was throw fear out the window. Throw that out the window, because this is all new. You know, building guided pathways. How's Guided Pathways going to look at our college, at your college? So just throw that fear out the window was probably the biggest lesson I've learned.
And for us, oh, go ahead, Jenny. Okay, I would just say for us, for students, I think that's always been our calm. When we've seen students get into a meeting, whether they're being our Guided Pathway Steering Committee meeting or on a standing committee, when you start hearing them speak, it's just like the whole room shifts. And I say the whole Zoom room shifts, because they see that it's something that they have that desire. It's not just coming from us, it's coming from their voices, their minds, their experiences. We just can literally see the faces change within the Zoom room when we see that happen. So I think, bringing your students in.
Yeah, keeping the focus on students is very important. Everyone's on the same team, like I said in the previous question, but also just leveraging everyone's need to connect right now, students, faculty, staff, everybody. You know, ask for help, be honest. I think people are wanting to connect and help out, and I think that's something to keep in mind.
Sure. I can add to that point as well. As facilitators, I'm sure you all can relate to the discouraging feeling or maybe getting frustrated, because as facilitators, this is at the forefront of every week that we work. It's like GP. And I found it to be relieving just to kind of capitalize. I think almost to Janice's point earlier, when you have such a large group, sometimes you know, it's hard to keep everyone with the momentum. So I think just to press forward and really to capitalize on the strengths. I know for us, the use of logic models and, you know, one of our tri-chairs who's a very active partner with us, creating that document from the SOAA, I think tangibly having those documents there, it almost is a no-brainer in terms of ensuring that we have goals to point to. And I think that's really helped us. So for any of you that might feel stuck, it definitely just helps to build with the momentum that you do have, you know, from those that are engaged, and just start small. And I think, you know, it'll start to trickle out.
I mean, I would say, yeah, getting people to participate across campus and things like that, like reaching out individually if you know that an area isn't represented. And, you know, really, because we need a lot of people to work on this in order to make transformational change. It's going to take your whole campus. And, you know, we found that we've been able to do things with a quick turnaround. I know that Josh put this in the chat, but like when the pandemic hit in March or mid-March, you know, we were able to send out a survey really quickly because we have Josh involved and other people involved on campus. And normally things like this take a really long time, but we were able to, you know, get a needs survey out there, figure out, you know, what students are needing at the time because everyone was like remote. And then also having people like live people reach out to them immediately. And I think that's the first time that we ever did anything like that, like responding to the needs survey immediately, you know, versus responding to the students' needs the next semester or the next year, you know, when it's already too late. So, and then I would say that if you're feeling stuck, we had that, you know, that United Student for Success Forum. And I would say like, we thought we were stuck too. And then all of a sudden GP is everywhere. Like it was just like crazy. It was like we were feeling super stuck, and all of a sudden it was like the floodgates open to like everybody wanted GP everywhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I would love to now turn it over to those attendees that are with us here today that may have some questions for all of you for our last 5 minutes. If you have a question, if you would like to raise your hand, or if you would like to drop that question in the chat, that would be greatly appreciated.
And I know we have Jason Suarez and Josh Rosales too from El Camino. So if you both wanted to add anything, it would be a good time to add something here too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that the survey that it wasn't just the Guided Pathways group that put that survey together. We worked with Equity, with FYE, with UPS, financial aid. You know, it was a cross-functional thing where you know, people were sending out their own surveys or getting ready to send out their own surveys, and so we kind of helped to coordinate all of that to get, you know, what it is that we really needed in order to act for the students.
Wonderful. Are there any other additional comments? I don't see any questions in the chat or hands up.
I would say, sorry, one last thing. I would say that, you know, for us on our campus, I mean, I don't know if this is a bad problem. It's not a bad problem, but we've actually not spent a lot of our money, because we found that a lot of stuff needed to be shifted on campus with current structures that didn't necessarily need money to be able to do that change. And so we've actually been very super conservative with our money. So we still have it, but we're very reluctant to spend it because we want to make sure that we utilize what resources we have on campus, especially knowing that the funding is going away in a couple years. So then we've kind of not spent our money. I don't know.
Yeah. We have Arpi in the chat that has a question for everyone, and I'm sorry for the fire engine passing by. Do you feel that this remote environment made equity more salient and enabled you to get more people on board? And I see Jessica.
Yes, because we've, and Ria can attest to this, we have a consistent amount of staff members, faculty, And now we'll soon have students actually come to our meetings and staying on our meetings. They're there live, they're interacting, they're engaged, they're sending emails, they want to be part of the group. It's like, this was like a gift that we needed. So we are just truly just like surprised that the pandemic shifted for us in a good direction. But we know that without our, I say my Gabe and Darlene, our student ambassador, without them having to give us the vision to see that things can change and that it can look different in their voice, but they are involved. And I said, yes, they're clicking in, joining in early. So we truly have seen that the shift has happened since we went remote.
I see Charles has a question. You mentioned shrinking the size of your teams. Have you found an optimal size? I think that this really depends on the college, but I've seen anywhere from 3 to 5 members on specific design teams. But again, I think that this is a very specific type of thing that every college needs to really evaluate for themselves in terms of what is going to work for you. What works at El Camino may not work at Southwest and may not work at another college in the region. So I say, we take all of these things into account and we see, again, what works for us. So we are at pretty much our time. Because we are really about that time. We start and end on time, and we
Rapid webinar.
Yes, rapid webinar, quick tips and tricks. So thank you so much. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day. We really hope that you have found this informative. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. And please join us for our next session on strengthening facilitation and collaboration on October 29th, where we will be featuring Citrus College and Ventura College. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Southwest. Thanks, El Camino.